Hello and welcome to another Magic Duels gameplay. Today we're taking a look at a black-green Emerge deck, which features the new mechanic from Eldritch Moon. So let's take a look at a creature with the Emerge mechanic here. One of them is Distended Mindbender, which costs 8 mana, which is a bit much, but luckily we have the Emerge mechanic here, which says we can cast a spell by sacrificing a creature and paying the Emerge cost reduced by that creature's converted mana cost. So this will not reduce the colored mana in the Emerge cost, but will reduce the generic cost in the Emerge cost. So also note that the Emerge cost itself is already cheaper than the converted mana cost. So what this basically means is if we have a 3-drop for example, then on turn 4 we can sacrifice that 3-drop, which reduces the Emerge cost by 3. So 7 minus 3 equals 4, so on turn 4 already we can emerge the Distended Mindbender, which gives us a 5/5 with a sweet cast trigger here that can make our opponent discard a bunch of cards. So that's the idea behind the deck. We want to emerge these big Eldrazi as quickly as possible and get as much value from them as we can. So let's take a look at the entire deck here, starting from the bottom. We've got 2 copies of Oath of Nissa, single green for an enchantment. That makes us look at the top 3 cards of our library. We can reveal a creature, land or planeswalker, put it into our hand and the rest on the bottom, and it also helps us cast our planeswalkers. So this gives us some nice card selection. We are mostly a creature deck, so we're gonna find a lot of targets with Oath of Nissa. We also have a bunch of sweet planeswalkers that we wouldn't mind hitting with an Oath of Nissa. So it just helps us curve out nicely. Next up we have Deathcap Cultivator, which is a nice mana accelerant in our colors. So the converted mana cost here is 2, but he also adds mana to our mana pool. So for Emerge purposes, it's kind of like he's a 3-drop that we can sacrifice for Emerge. And of course we can also just keep him around to add more mana. And next up we have Duskwatch Recruiter, which does a lot of things for the deck. So it's a werewolf, which means he will transform if no player casts a spell during their last turn. And then he transforms into the Horde Howler, which makes our creature spells cheaper, which is what we want to do. Since we're mostly a creature deck, we have some expensive Emerge creatures in our deck, so making them cheaper is pretty great. And then of course, even if he's transformed, he still has a converted mana cost of 2, so that's something to keep in mind. And then of course, he can also provide a lot of card advantage with the activated ability, letting us look at the top 3 cards and look for a creature and put it into our hand. And again, we are mostly a creature deck, so we'll find a lot of targets. Then we also have Elvish Visionary, which is a nice expendable creature. Converted mana cost is 2, but when she enters the battlefield we get to draw a card, so we actually don't mind sacrificing the Elvish Visionary since we already got our card back from her, so it's a nice target for Emerge purposes. Then we have Grasp of Darkness, a 2 mana instant speed removal spell. We have even more removal spells at higher casting costs, but it's nice to have a cheap 2 mana one to diversify our removal a little bit and smooth out our curve. Then we have Pilgrim's Eye, which is another nice expendable creature that we can sacrifice for Emerge purposes, since the converted mana cost is 3, so this lets us curve Pilgrim's Eye into a 7 cost Emerge creature on turn 4. And when Pilgrim's Eye enters the battlefield, we get to look for a basic land and put it into our hand. So we're not down on card advantage by sacrificing the Pilgrim's Eye. Then we also have Nyssa, which is pretty similar to the Pilgrim's Eye, but of course we would prefer not to sacrifice Nyssa, as she can transform into Sage Animist and provide a lot of card advantage, but still does pretty much the same for Emerge purposes. We also have Tireless Tracker, just to provide some extra card advantage with the Investigate whenever we play a land, and also something we could sacrifice on turn 4, but not really a prime target for Emerge. Then we have Foul Emissary, which is a prime target for Emerge, since it mentions it in the card itself, not very subtle. So for 3 mana we get a 1/1, but when he enters the battlefield we get to look at the top 4 cards, reveal a creature card and put it into our hand. The rest goes on the bottom. and then when we sacrifice Foul Emissary while casting a spell with Emerge, we can put a 3/2 Eldrazi creature token onto the battlefield, so we get a nice 3/2 for our troubles, and still we're not down on card advantage if we found a creature when we entered the battlefield, so this card does pretty much all we want in this deck. Lets us curve 3-drop into an Emerge creature on turn 4. So with 3 Foul Emissaries and 3 Pilgrims Eyes, we've got a lot of 3-drops that we would like to sacrifice. Then we have 2 copies of Murder as another instant speed removal spell, a bit more expensive than the Grasp of Darkness, but this one is unconditional, so has more targets. We also have Liliana, the Last Hope, as a nice planeswalker. Can shrink down creatures, put some cards into the graveyard and get a creature back, since we are a creature deck for the most part, and then the ultimate can also close out the game. We also have Nyssa, which can make some tokens and put +1/+1 counters on our creatures, and she works pretty nicely in this deck because we are going wide most of the time, making lots of small creatures, so Nyssa goes pretty nicely into that game plan. We also have 1 copy of Emrakul's Influence, just as a fun, spicy card. So it's a 4-mana enchantment that says whenever we cast an Eldrazi creature spell with converted mana cost 7 or greater, we get to draw 2 cards. So of course all the Emerge creatures are Eldrazi that cost 7 or more, so we get to draw 2 cards when we emerge them. But this is kind of a win more card in a way, so we don't want to have too many copies of Emrakul's Influence, because if we draw a lot of these and not a lot of Emerge creatures, then we're not getting anywhere. Then we also have 2 copies of Priest of the Bloodrite, which is another nice creature to sacrifice, since it's a 5 casting cost creature that enters the battlefield and makes a 5/5 demon, and then at the beginning of our upkeep we lose 2 life to the Priest, but if we can just sacrifice a Priest when emerging a creature, we still get to keep the 5/5 demon, and we get a nice discount on our Emerge creatures. Then we have Ob Nixilis, another powerful planeswalker that can be used as a removal spell, but can also draw some cards. Then we get to our Emerge creatures. We've got 2 copies of Distended Mindbender, which is one of the better ones. When we cast him, we get to look at the opponent's hand. We can choose a card with converted mana cost 3 or less, and one with converted mana cost 4 or greater, and make that player discard those cards. So we can discard up to 2 cards if we're a bit lucky. Then we have it of the Horrid Swarm, which is a 4/4 that when we cast him we get 2 1/1 green insect creature tokens, so this also supports our plan of going wide and trying to swarm the opponent, no pun intended. And then finally our big finisher in the deck is Decimator of the Provinces, 10 mana, 9 with Emerge, and when we cast the Decimator of Provinces, creatures we control get +2/+2 and trample until end of turn, and it's a 7/7 trample haste himself, so this will surely close out the game. And then our mana base, we've got 7 swamps, 7 forests, 2 Hissing Quagmires that can transform into 2/2 Death Touch creatures. Then we have Westvale Abbey, 2 copies, since this kind of goes well into a deck making lots of expendable creatures, since then we can sacrifice 5 of them and get a nice 9/7 flying lifelink indestructible haste creature. And of course we can also make some tokens with the Abbey itself. And then we have 2 Woodland Cemetery and 4 Evolving Wilds, which also go nicely with the Tireless Tracker, giving us 2 landfall triggers basically. So that's the deck. Now let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Alright, let's take a look at our opener, which unfortunately doesn't have any green mana, otherwise it would have been pretty great. So let's try another one. Alright, this one could work. Do need to draw some more lands here, but we have an Elvish Visionary to give us a shot. So we can go turn to Westvale Abbey into Elvish Visionary, hopefully find a land, and then Pilgrim's Eye can find us another one. So we're all set for a turn 4 it of the Horrid Swarm. Opponent with Evolving Wilds. and they get a plains. So land would be a good draw. There we go, perfect. So I think we just go forest into Elvish Visionary. No need to reveal the Westvale Abbey yet. And see what we draw. Tireless Tracker, not bad. But probably still gonna go with the Pilgrim's Eye on 3 unless we draw another land next turn, so we're sure that we have 4 lands for the emerge here. Because if we play the Emissary and don't find a land, then we still can't emerge the Horrid Swarm here. So opponent on blue-white. We drew a Deathcap Cultivator, so I think we just attack for 1 and then play Pilgrim's Eye. And get a swamp, so we have double black for Liliana. And then next turn we can make a 4/4 plus 2 1/1 tokens, which is not bad. But of course we could attack first with the Pilgrim's Eye if the coast is clear. Opponent leaving up 3 mana, so could have all sorts of counter spells or instant speed spirit creatures. So I think attacking might be a bit risky since the Pilgrim's Eye might get eaten by something like a Spell Queller. So now the question is, do we want to run out the Horrid Swarm here? The upside is that it can't get countered by a Spell Queller while all our other cards can. So I'm kind of into that. Our other option is maybe going Tireless Tracker, play a land, could also just play Liliana, could also just play the Emissary, but I kind of like running out the It of the Horrid Swarm, because even if this gets countered, we still get the 2 1/1s because it's on cast and not on enters the battlefield. But looks like the opponent doesn't have any counter spells. Now the question is, do we want to attack for 1 and possibly run into a flash creature? Yeah, sure. Most flash creatures have 1 toughness, Spell Queller is the only exception. Alright, so no flash creatures from the opponent, and we got a nice board state going here. Also notable that we have 4 creatures for Westvale Abbey, so we're getting close to activating this. Opponent with 4 mana. At 5 mana they could have all sorts of sweeper effects in white, but they're still not doing anything, which leads me to believe they have a bunch of counterspells. So what we could do to play around a counterspell is just playing a land and activating the Hissing Quagmire and attack with everyone. But we do have a lot of 3-drops in our hand that we would like to play out. So I could also just see running out a Foul Emissary or a Deathcap Cultivator. But I think we should probably attack first, see what happens. If the opponent taps out for something, maybe Liliana can finish off a creature the opponent flashes in. And it is indeed a Thunderclap Wyvern, which we can't quite finish off with Liliana, since her opponent's gonna block a 1/1 and this has 3 toughness, and Liliana only gives -2/-1. But the good thing is that we get to resolve whatever we want here. So Tireless Tracker, play a land, make a clue is not bad. Could also go Tireless Tracker, play a land, play Deathcap Cultivator. I think I like that the most so far, since that puts a bit of pressure in play but also gives us some card advantage in the long run. And I don't think I like sacrificing the clue right away here, since we have plenty of cards in hand. So I would rather play out the Cultivator, since I don't think we need to play around a sweeper from the opponent. So let's see what they can do here. They could play something like a Whirler Rogue, which goes nicely with the Wyvern, since that puts two 1/1 flyers into play that get +1/+1. Then if we ever manage to get rid of the Wyvern, we can start killing those 1/1 tokens with Liliana. And again, the Westvale Abbey is still something our opponent needs to think about. So Declaration in Stone could exile the tokens for free, but our opponent opts for the Swarm here. And then Grasp of the Hieromancer on the Wyvern. So can tap down a creature when he attacks, but it's gonna stay on defense for now. So a lot of options here again. I think I like playing Tireless Tracker and then playing a land. Still no real need to play out Liliana here, I think. Although we could, if we wanted to. So now we get 2 clues from our 2 trackers. And we can definitely attack with the tracker here, since I'm more than happy to trade the tracker for the Wyvern and the enchantment if we sacrifice a clue here. Opponent does accept the trade. So let's go ahead and sacrifice a clue. And we can even sacrifice 2 clues here, which gives our tracker 4 toughness, so it even survives the 3 damage. Since we didn't have any 2-drops that we wanted to play, probably should have waited with sacrificing the second clue, look at what we draw with the first one and then decide, but letting our tracker survive seemed like a no-brainer. So the opponent pretty much needs a sweeper here, and looks like they don't have it. So managed to emerge this on turn 4, apply some pressure and then take over the game with Tireless Trackers. So all according to plan. Didn't even need to play out Liliana. Grasp of Darkness, a nice draw here. So we can just get rid of the Spirit here. And unless our opponent had an Essence Flux, they're dead, and they didn't appear to have it. So we can sacrifice some clues here. And next turn we could have even activated Westvale Abbey if we wanted to. All good draws here. But our opponent is pretty dead here, so let's move on to the next one. Alright, let's take a look at our opener, which doesn't have any cheap creatures, so I think we can do better. Alright, this is indeed a lot better. So we have a turn 2 Recruiter, turn 3 Pilgrim's Eye, turn 4 It of the Horrid Swarm. And then if we ever cast our Decimator with all those tokens in play, that's gonna be game. So we can lead off with Evolving Wilds, getting a forest. And then cast a turn 2 Recruiter. Opponent with a Meandering River coming into play tapped. So let's just play out our Recruiter. And if our opponent wants to hold up a counterspell, our Recruiter is going to transform and make our creatures a bit cheaper, which works pretty nicely with this hand actually. So double blue, opponent could be holding a counterspell instead. Reflector Mage is not bad, as it'll bounce our Recruiter. And we can't replay it, but we can just play out Foul Emissary or Pilgrim's Eye. And we drew a land, so I think I'll play the Foul Emissary instead of Pilgrim's Eye, since we're sure that we can emerge this on turn 4. And we get some extra value by sacrificing the Emissary. Plus we get a look at a creature here. And we found Priest, which isn't bad. Hopefully our opponent doesn't have a second Reflector Mage. And I guess if they do, we just play out Pilgrim's Eye. 4 mana for the opponent. They're gonna attack for 2, which is fine. So we go to 18. And no attacks from the opponent, so they could be holding up all sorts of instant speed creatures, including Thunderclap Wyvern, including Spell Queller, or just counter spells. But counter spells aren't even that great against our emerge creatures, because we still get some value from them, plus we get the Eldrazi by sacrificing the Emissary. So I don't think we want to attack here, because if our opponent has a creature to ambush our Emissary, then we don't get to emerge anything. So let's just go ahead and emerge the Horrid Swarm here and see what happens. Opponent looks to be holding a counter, but we still get some good value, so they do indeed have a counterspell in Broken Concentration. But we still get 2 1/1s and a 3/2. So, not bad. Next turn we can just play out a Priest, and then we can sacrifice a Priest to the Decimator. Opponent with lots of bounce spells here, bouncing our token, which is a bit unfortunate, since that'll just get rid of it. We're just gonna take 2. So if we play the Priest and our opponent bounces the Demon token, that's a bit annoying, but it still seems like our best play here. And the 2/2 Priest can even block the Void Mage, which might entice our opponent not to attack, even if they get rid of the Demon token. But, so this costs 5, the Decimator emerge is 9, so we can already emerge it next turn if we want to, which would give this +2/+2 and these +2/+2, so that's 6 plus 7, 13, plus 7, 20. But our opponent did have another Reflector Mage for our Demon token, which is unfortunate. So do they attack, or do they let the Priest deal us 2 damage? They opt not to attack. So we can still emerge the Decimator if we want to, but we're not attacking for a whole lot. But we would still be putting a 7/7 Trample Haste into play, which of course isn't bad. But we could just play out some more creatures and make the Decimator lethal next turn, which I think I like more. So we can go 2 2-drops, or a 2-drop and a 3-drop, or 2 3-drops. If we go Pilgrim's Eye plus Nyssa, I guess we go with 2 3-drops, since that's more mana efficient. So let's play Pilgrim's Eye first, in case our opponent has horribly awry they want to use to counter our creature. They do not. And now we could still play out the Duskwatch Recruiter, since Nyssa is not transforming this turn, and it's still the same amount of power and toughness in play. So yeah, actually I don't hate playing out a Recruiter. That way we can also play out Evolving Wilds instead of playing out the Forest. Although Evolving Wilds plus Nyssa is a nice combo, since you can protect her by sacrificing the Evolving Wilds. But no attacks here. Let's still sacrifice the Evolving Wilds, get a Swamp. Although I guess with triple green on the emerge cost here we probably should have gotten a Forest, but it probably doesn't matter. Alright, so the opponent has 6 mana available. What are they going to do with it? And are they going to attack us or not? They didn't attack us last turn, because I guess we could have double blocked a Reflector Mage with a Priest and a 1/1. But now our opponent has a Royal Spout, which is going to bounce our Duskwatch Recruiter to the top of our library and make a 4/4 thanks to Awaken. And does the opponent attack? Still no attacks. So we lose 2 from the Priest. We redraw our Duskwatch Recruiter. So what happens when we emerge the Decimator now? We would get 9 plus 7, 16 trampling power, but I think it's about time that we get rid of this Priest, otherwise it keeps draining us for 2. I guess we could play Nyssa first, since, let's see, 9, so it's only 4 to emerge this, so we can still play Nyssa and emerge the Decimator here. So let's do that first. Get a forest, play the forest. And now do we want to plus or do we want to make a 4/4 token? Making a 4/4 doesn't seem bad, since that's a nice creature to keep on defense. Since I don't think this game is gonna last a whole lot longer. And we are at 12. And then let's emerge this. And attack with everyone. I don't mind trading our tokens with any of the opponent's creatures. Opponent is going to take it all. So they drop all the way down to 4. So do they have another Royal Spout here? Or something similar? They have a Docent of Perfection. Alright. I see, so our opponent is on the Wizard tribal deck here, with Reflector Mage being a wizard and the Separatist Void Mage being a wizard. So the Docent is pretty strong here. Opponent wants to kill Nyssa, but the token is gonna eat one of the opponent's creatures. And our opponent is at 4, so they do need to be a bit careful. So they just attack Nyssa with 2 creatures. I think we just killed the Reflector Mage here. And we draw a Swamp. So let's play out Duskwatch Recruiter and use the activated ability to see what we draw. Alright, Tireless Tracker is not bad, Foul Emissary is not bad. So, given that I don't think this game is gonna last a whole lot longer, I would like to get the Emissary, so that we can hopefully find another big emerge creature. Since we can't trigger the landfall on the Tireless Tracker this turn anyways. So first we want to figure out if we want to attack here, so we can attack with the Decimator and the Ashaya token pretty freely here, and the opponent is forced to block both. So here I think we can just attack with everyone, with our opponent being at 4. They need at least 4 toughness on the Decimator. So that means either the Docent or the 4/4. They also need to block Ashaya, so let's say with Reflector Mage, and then they still take a bunch. So I don't mind this. Trying to trade off as many creatures as possible. The opponent isn't dead on board, but they will need to trade a few creatures, which we don't mind with the Foul Emissary and Duskwatch Recruiter, providing a steady stream of creatures. And we want to prevent our opponent from ever transforming the docent into the final iteration, because that would be a problem. Alright, so we can kill both creatures, trade off the planes with Ashaya and deal 3. And our turn took a bit too long, so we didn't get to play out the Emissary, but I guess we still get to activate the Duskwatch Recruiter here, so it's not the end of the world. Royal Spout on, I'm guessing, the Recruiter. Nope, it's gonna be on the Pilgrim's Eye, which we probably want to wait with activating the Duskwatch Recruiter, so that we potentially find a better creature than the Pilgrim's Eye. So the opponent can't attack here, and they're actually dead on board if we just attack with everyone. So we can activate Duskwatch Recruiter, take a look. Did find Pilgrim's Eye and 2 Planeswalkers, but yep, we can just attack with everyone. And Emrakul's influence a bit late, but alright, sweet. Decimator of the Provinces really decimated our opponent, so on to the next one. Alright, let's take a look at our opener, which looks pretty decent. Too bad this comes into play tapped, but we have a turn 2 Visionary, turn 3 Foul Emissary, potentially turn 4 Emrakul's Influence, and hopefully Oath of Nissa and Foul Emissary can find a big emerge creature so that we get to draw the cards and get the token from the Emissary. Evolving Wilds from our opponent, and that's going to get a swamp. Alright. We drew a swamp as well, so let's play out Quagmire and hope to draw some green sources for the Emrakul's Influence here. So turn 2 we could actually choose between a Visionary and the Oath of Nissa. Opponent on black-white, and we drew Liliana. Alright, so the plan is probably turn 3 play a Liliana, which kind of makes me want to play the Visionary on 2 rather than the Oath of Nissa, since that gives us a creature that can protect our Liliana. So let's play out the Visionary. Draw a card, another swamp, alright, got a lot of swamps. And also if our Visionary dies, we could get it back with Liliana, not that we would really want to. Opponent on Mardu colors, so it could be some sort of Super Friends deck. Those are usually off to slow starts. So we can play Duskwatch Recruiter, we can play Foul Emissary, we can play Liliana. Think we attack for 1 first. So it's pretty likely that our opponent has something like an Anguished Unmaking in hand, which could answer our Liliana as well as the Emrakul's Influence. So that could be a reason to go with the Foul Emissary here, for example, so that we try to bait the Anguished Unmaking with something else. It's also better to play Liliana when we can get value from her right away. And here I think we probably want to go with the Pilgrim's Eye, which can get our forest, Could also get the Cultivator, but if he dies, then we don't have the green source. So next turn we could go Pilgrim's Eye, get a forest, play out Oath of Nissa. Opponent has a Gisela, the Broken Blade. So that does a pretty good job of attacking our planeswalkers. So I think we go with Pilgrim's Eye plus Oath of Nissa and then try to find something decent with Oath of Nissa that we can emerge into potentially. So let's get a forest. Play a forest. Play Oath of Nissa. And see what we can get. Alright, so we have it of the Horrid Swarm and a Priest of the Blood Rite. The problem is that we don't have an emerge creature to go with the Priest, so we can't actually get rid of it pretty easily. So I think I'll go with the Horrid Swarm here. That way we can sacrifice the Foul Emissary and get something going. Also combines nicely with our Influence, of course. So we could play the Influence first, if we think we have the time to. No attacks. So Gisela can hit us for 4, gain 4. But at some point we could also play Liliana to shrink Gisela, so we take less damage. So next turn we could emerge, or we could play the Influence first. Opponent still does nothing. And alright, Westvale Abbey is a very interesting draw, since that can change the game pretty quickly. And with the tokens from the It of the Horrid Swarm, we get up to 5 creatures pretty easily. I still like playing the Emrakul's Influence, maybe getting this Anguished Unmakinged. But I guess we should probably attack first with all our creatures. I don't think there's any flash creature in those colors we need to play around. So let's attack. Play out the Influence first. And then we can play Evolving Wilds, which can get another forest. Alright, so let's see if the opponent has anything end of turn. Nope. They're gonna attack us for 4 again. Put us to 12. They go up to 24. The problem of playing the Horrid Swarm is that if our opponent has a sweeper effect, our entire board is gone. But I guess we still get to draw 2 cards, so it's not the end of the world, and a sweeper will probably also kill Gisela, so we at least get rid of her. And still nothing from our opponent, that's weird. Another It of the Horrid Swarm. So we could go off here and make a ton of It of the Horrid Swarms, but I think we still attack first. And then emerge the Foul Emissary. So this is gonna cost us 4. So we get to draw 2 cards. And we could, if we wanted to, emerge the other Horrid Swarm onto the first one to draw 2 cards again. But that's where the sweeper is kind of a problem. So I guess I'm okay with playing out a Duskwatch Recruiter since we have another one and we have a lot of stuff going on already. So that kind of entices our opponent to play a sweeper, which I'm actually fine with, although it's obviously better if they don't have one. So they're probably gonna attack and then play the sweeper, if they have one. So we go to 8. But if our opponent has a sweeper, we basically get to start a game over and we're on the play, but nope, no sweeper effect. Opponent discards to hand size. So they must be holding a lot of expensive or situational cards. Alright, I see a Distended Mindbender gets discarded. But here we could just play Westvale Abbey and activate it right away, and only Anguished Unmaking can really exile the indestructible Ormondal. But we can still just sacrifice a bunch of crappy creatures. Can also emerge the It of the Horrid Swarm. That way we have to sacrifice less of our creatures that don't have summoning sickness. So we can play Westvale Abbey, emerge It of the Horrid Swarm onto the other It of the Horrid Swarm, draw 2 cards, that's not bad. And then we can sacrifice 5 creatures. One, 2, 3, 4, and I think 5. Make an Ormondal. And I think I keep back the Pilgrim's Eye on defense, just in case our opponent can exile our Ormondal before we get to gain the life, so that we can still block the Gisela. Alright, so no Anguished Unmaking, get to gain a bunch of life, put the opponent at 10, and we have a full grip. Declaration in Stone, that's an answer to Ormondal, but some of the damage has already been done. We also have Grasp of Darkness to answer Gisela. So opponent can go up to 14. We can deal 11 damage, plus 2 more with Hissing Quagmire. So it's risky for the opponent to attack, but then again, we could just kill Gisela and then our opponent doesn't get to gain any life and they're also dead. So opponent elects to stay on defense, and this is kind of perfect. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We can emerge this onto the Pilgrim's Eye, and we might still be able to Grasp of Darkness. Let's see, 2, 3, 4, 5, yeah, thanks to the cost reduction from the Howler, we should still be able to keep up Grasp of Darkness after we emerge this. And we get to draw 2 cards. Alright, sweet. Grasp of Darkness on Gisela. Can our opponent protect her somehow? Nope. Gisela down. And let's just attack with everyone. Guess we can use this useful button. And that should do it. Alright, sweet. I wanna thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed this gameplay, and as always, have a nice day.